Emergency provisions. The emergency provisions are contained in the Part 18 of the Constitution. So Part 18 deals with the emergency provisions. And now over here, it is from Article 352 to Article 360 is emergency provisions. There is a range of articles, right? The article range begins from 52 to 60. 52 till 60. 352 to 360. Now this belongs in part, if you subtract this, it comes as 8. Right, 8 is the last. So part 18 of the constitution from article is going to be 352 to 360. Article 352 defines the term cabinet as the council of the prime minister and other ministers of the cabinet rank. In Article 352, for declaration of the emergency, there is a definition of the Prime Minister, Cabinet. There is a definition of the Cabinet as the Council of the Ministers and other ministers of the Cabinet rank. Enabling the central government to meet any abnormal situation, we are having emergency provisions to safeguard the sovereignty, unity and integrity, the security of the country, the democratic political system and the constitution. It converts the federal structure into the unitary one. The federal nature of our federal nature, the federal structure of the Indian constitution, India, the federal structure of the India is changed into a unitary. It is changed into unitary without a formal constitutional amendment. Constitution stipulates we have three types of emergencies: national emergency, state emergency, and financial emergency. National emergency is under Article 352, state emergency is under Article 356, and financial emergency is Article 360. So, national emergency under Article 352. We have the national emergency under Article 352 on the grounds of war, external aggression, or armed rebellion. The grounds is going to be war, external aggression. There is an external aggression and then there is also an armed rebellion. War, external aggression, and then we'll be having the armed rebellion. The constitution employs expression, proclamation of the emergency to denote the emergency of this type. It is not mentioned as national emergency, but the title is like proclamation of emergency. The first proclamation of the emergency during the China's attack on the India. When China has attacked India on October 1962 to January 1968. The state emergency or the president's rule, right? We'll be having the state emergency. It is the failure of the constitutional machinery of the state. So for national emergency, it is mentioned as proclamation of emergency. For the state emergency, for a national emergency, it is mentioned as a proclamation of emergency. For a state emergency, it is measured as a failure to comply with the directions of the center, or we also have the constitutional machinery in the state is Article 356 and Article 365 is failure to comply with the directions of the center. There are two conditions under which state emergency can be established. The president's rule can be established. The first one is the failure of the constitution. The second one is going to be comply with directions. When we are failing to comply with the directions, the constitution does not use the word emergency for the situation. We say that president's rule is when Article 356 and Article 365. 356 is failure of the constitutional machinery in the states. Failure of constitutional machinery in the states, and Article 365 is going to be the failure to comply with the directions of the state. We are having a failure when there is a failure to comply with the directions of the state. The constitution does not use the word we call emergency for the situation. We have financial emergency, right? Financial emergency under Article 360. It is a threat to the financial stability credit of the India. National emergency, right? Grounds of the declaration of national emergency are: first, under Article 356, President can declare the emergency. National emergency is also declared by the President. Who declares the national emergency? National emergency is declared by the President on the grounds of war, external aggression, or armed rebellion. Right. So the national emergency is being declared by the President. National emergency is the President on the grounds of war, external aggression, or armed rebellion. And this armed rebellion, previously it was internal disturbance. It was changed by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978. Right. So the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978 has changed the internal disturbance to the armed rebellion. Who declares a national emergency? President declares the national emergency. Danger of the war or armed rebellion, even not the actual occurrence of it, it is enough to make, even the sense of danger is enough, not actual occurrence is necessary. It may be applicable to the entire country or only part of it. Entire country or part of it, President declares it on the grounds of war, external aggression, armed rebellion. Armed rebellion is by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Earlier it was internal disturbance. The danger of the war or armed rebellion, even if it is not an actual occurrence. Originally, the Constitution mentioned the internal disturbance as the third ground due to the vagueness of this Article 352. We had 44th Constitutional Amendment Act substituted it for armed rebellion. Internal disturbance has been substituted with armed rebellion because 1975 emergency was called on the ground of internal disturbance. 42nd Constitution enabled the President to limit the operation of national emergency to a specified area. Right. So it is through the 44th Amendment we have the armed rebellion. And it is through the 42nd Amendment we have the operation of the national emergency. We have the operation of the national emergency to a specified part of India. President must receive a written recommendation of the cabinet to declare the emergency under 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1978. We need a written recommendation. President, before he declares, he need a written recommendation of cabinet. The cabinet members must give a written recommendation to declare the emergency. When we are recapping, national emergency is done on the ground of Article 352. Right. When this national emergency is proclaimed by the President on the grounds of war, external aggression, armed rebellion. This is because the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act has changed the term internal disturbance into armed rebellion due to the vagueness of the word internal disturbance, and the 1975 emergency was based on the internal disturbance. It is applicable to the entire country or a part of the country. This is through the President must receive a written recommendation of the cabinet, and even the applicable to the country is through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act enable the President to limit. The President can limit, right, the application to the entire country or a part of it. Through the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, substituted it for the armed rebellion. 1975 emergency was called on the ground of internal disturbance. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act enabled the President to limit the operation of national emergency to a specified part of India. The President must receive a written recommendation of the Cabinet to declare the emergency. Now, 38th Constitutional Amendment Act made that the emergency is immune from the judicial review, but this was deleted by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. 38 is deleted by the 44th. 38 is in 1975. Before declaring the emergency, they just made a amendment that there should not be a judicial review for the declaration of national emergency. But this was repealed by the constitutional amendment itself, and the Supreme Court did not interfere. Then Minerva Mills case declares that if the proclamation will be challenged on the ground of malafide bad intention, or that the declaration was extraneous and irrelevant facts is observed and perverse. We have Minerva Mills case of 1980. It's related to the declaration of emergency. Right. First, we'll be having the direct 38th Constitutional Amendment Act. And what are the Amendment Acts? 38th, 42nd, and 44th are the Amendment Acts which are involved in it. Now, the 38th Constitutional Amendment Act is going to Amendment Act of 1975 declares that national emergency is immune for the judicial review. We have the national emergency and it is immune for the judicial review. But it was deleted by the 44th itself. So 42nd Amendment Act is dealing that the President can declare even for a part of it. And 44th Amendment Act is when Cabinet's written advice is required for the President, and the term Cabinet has been defined. In the sense, it has mentioned that defines the term cabinet. Article 352 defines, it has defined the term cabinet. Does the term cabinet has been defined in our constitution? Yes. It is a council of prime minister and other ministers. It defines the term cabinet as it is a group of ministers, prime ministers and other ministers of cabinet rank. Now, parliamentary approval. Once the president proclaims such an emergency, it requires a parliamentary approval. The proclamation must be approved by both the houses of the parliament within 1 month from the date of its issue. Both houses within 1 month. Earlier it was 2 months, but it was changed by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Such a proclamation needs to be accepted by both the houses of the parliament within 1 month, right? If the Lok Sabha is dissolved when the proclamation happens, then it has to approve with 1 month after its reconstitution if the Rajya Sabha has approved it in the meantime. 1 month is 1 month. If approved, it continues for 6 months and need to be approved for every 6 months is again 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Just 1 month, right? We are having a provision of 1 month for the Constitutional Amendment Acts. Now, first, when the proclamation must be approved by both the houses within 1 month. Right. When within 1 month, I proclaim an emergency and I accept the emergency. Within 1 month, I proclaim an emergency and I accept the emergency. I, in the sense, it mentions both the houses of the parliament. If one house is in prorogation, dissolved, that is Lok Sabha alone can dissolve, right? Rajya Sabha cannot. When Lok Sabha is being dissolved over here, you say that the Lok Sabha is dissolved. What next to do? And it is anyhow getting reconstituted, right? Once if it is reconstituted, once if the Lok Sabha is again came into force, it must approve within 1 month. So approval time is just 1 month. And if approved, it needs to continue for 6 months. For every 6 months, an approval is required. This is going to be an 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. The resolution of the Lok Sabha takes place during the 6 months without approval of the continuation. The proclamation lasts for 30 days until the Lok Sabha reconstitution, provided the Rajya Sabha has in meantime approved it. Every resolution approved by the proclamation must be passed by either house with a special majority. Previously, it was simple majority. So 1 month and for 1 month, but it is valid for only 6 months. And we need a special majority. 1 month, which is valid for 6 months, special majority. Revocation. President by subsequent proclamation without any parliamentary approval. President alone without the parliamentary approval, if the Prime Minister and the Cabinet is suggesting him to withdraw the emergency, he can withdraw the proclamation without the parliamentary approval. The Lok Sabha has passed a resolution, can pass. Here we are giving the power to the Lok Sabha alone. Right. Should pass the Lok Sabha with a simple majority. So the resolution can be passed in the Lok Sabha here with a simple majority itself. It can resolve the proclamation of emergency. In order to resolve it, 1/10 of the members, 1/10 is the thing which is needed for the quorum as well. So 1/10 of the members are giving a written notice to the speaker. They are giving a written notice to the speaker. If 1/10 and they have a notice to the speaker, president, and to the president if the house is not in the session. This is the important thing we have to note. And they are giving to the president if the house is not in session. Right. How does the revocation of the proclamation happens? President can revoke the proclamation. Right. President can revoke at any subsequent time without the approval of the parliament. If the Lok Sabha wants to disapprove the emergency, then the president must resolve it, revoke it. First, we have the procedure is mentioned through the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. 1/10 of the members, we'll be saying that 1/10 of the members of the Lok Sabha give a written notice to the speaker and the president if the house is not in the session. Then the special sitting of the house is held within 14 days. Right, we'll be having a special sitting. Disapproval occurrence is only in the Lok Sabha unless for approval it needs both the houses. Resolution for the disapproval can be passed by the Lok Sabha only through a simple majority in the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act and 10% or more Lok Sabha members to share an application for and the meeting of the Lok Sabha. Resolution approving continuation of the proclamation needs to be passed with a special majority. Effects of the national emergency. Effects on the center-state relation. What happened to the center state? Centers can give the executive directions to the state regarding any matter. State governments are not suspended, but they are brought under the complete control of the central government. We say that the center is giving the executive direction. Center to direct the state to the regarding any matter, and the state government is not suspended, but they are brought under the complete central government. Executive is the central government can order the state government. Government means executive. Legislative is the parliament, right? Parliament can make law on any subject in the state list, but state governments can continue making laws, but they are overridden by the parliament. It will suspend the distribution of legislative powers between union and the state. Laws made by the parliaments on the state subject become inoperative 6 months after the emergency has been ceased to operate, and Parliament can convert the powers or the duties upon the Union Executive regarding any matter of the state list. President issues ordinances on the state subject if the Parliament is not in session. Two consequences mentioned about the does not extend only in the state but also to other states. If we have a particular location is having emergency, the executive and the legislative relations applies to other areas as well. Financial is the president is the one who is going to modify the constitutional distribution of the revenues between the center and the states. Right. Now, who is going to modify the constitutional distribution of the revenues between the center and the state? The president is the one and he is going to modify. Very important. Related to the executive, the central government can control the state government. Related to the legislature, we have the parliament to make laws in the state list. Though the state legislature is not suspended, the parliamentary laws are given more weightage, right? The next thing over here is financial powers. The constitutional distribution under Article 280. Finance Commission has recommended the constitutional distribution. Now, who can alter this financial distribution of revenues between the center and the state? The president can alter. It also continues till the end of the financial year. If the parliamentary law is made in the status, it lasts for 6 months, even after the national emergency is over. Now, for financial, it continues till the end of the financial year in which the emergency ceases to operate. What is the effect of the life of Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies? Life of the Lok Sabha may be extended beyond a normal term, 5 years, by the law of the parliament for 1 year at a time. For 1 year at a time. It cannot be extended indefinitely. It is extended for 1 year at a time. The extension is for every year, right? Now, extension cannot continue beyond 6 months after the cease of emergency. Just till 6 months. 1 year at a time, that too just till 6 months, and it cannot continue beyond the 6 months after emergency has been ceased. The parliament can also extend the state legislature for 1 year at the time, subject to a maximum period of 6 months. Even the parliament here is extending the period of the state legislature. The state legislature itself is not extending. The parliament is extending through a law the time period of parliament itself for a 1 year at a time, and it should not be extended beyond 6 months. And the parliament is also extending the term of the state legislature. Now we have to see the effect of fundamental rights and suspension on the fundamental rights. Once it is over, we are going to look into the president's rule. The effect on the fundamental rights is going to be the Article 358. We have an article, and the article is 358, and Article 359 is a suspension on the rights under the Article 19 or during the emergency. Article 19 gets suspended. Article 19. We have Article 19, and Article 19 gets suspended. Suspension of the rights under Article 19 during the emergency. Right. And then we have Article 359. Article 358, and then we have Article 359. So there are two different types of the articles. Those are Article 358, and then we'll be having the Article 359. Suspension of the fundamental rights under Article 19 during the emergency is what we have under Article 358. Right. Only Article 19 gets suspended, and in Article 359 we say that suspension of other fundamental rights except of Article 20 is and Article 21. Article 20 is conviction of the offences. Conviction of offences. And Article 21 is right to life and personal liberty. Right to the life and personal liberty. We have two different kinds of the article, Article 358 and Article 359, right? These two articles are mentioned in the Constitution with respect to suspension of the fundamental rights. Under this, we say that Article 358 is Article 19 alone is suspended, and Article 359 is where we say that all the fundamental rights are suspended except under Article 20 and 21. Now we know Article 352, 358 and 359 are related during the national emergency, right? Suspension of the fundamental rights under Article 19. When Article 358, when a proclamation of the national emergency is made, when we are proclaiming the national emergency, the 6 fundamental rights under Article 19 are suspended automatically. Now we have a term called as automatic suspension. Suspension of the fundamental rights under the Article 19 of the Constitution, right? Under we'll be having Article 358. So this is 352, 358, 359. Automatic suspension of the right to freedom. And there is no separate order for the suspension is required. Rights under Article 19. We have rights under Article 19, right? Can be suspended only during the national emergency, which is declared on the grounds of the war, and then we have the and not on the grounds of the armed rebellion. We say that Article 19 is suspended only on the grounds of external aggression or the war, and not on the grounds of the armed rebellion. from 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978. Now, we need to recap seriously about what all the changes made from the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Initially, the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act for National Emergency, written advice of the Cabinet is required. We say that the written advice of the Cabinet is required, right? And it has reduced the duration of the approval from 2 months to 1 month is the duration of the approval. And apart from that, even the Lok Sabha can revoke the resolution if it is 1/10 of the members have to give a written letter to the president in case if the Lok Sabha is not in session, or the speaker if the Lok Sabha is in the session, and they go with a simple majority. Now the third one over here is 35th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1975, which has we have the 35th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1975, which is going to have the judicial review is being cancelled, right? This has been revoked by the 1978 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now the fourth one is the fundamental rights under Article 19 are suspended only during the war and external aggression and not during the armed rebellion. Right. These are the effects of the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978. Related to the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act is related to the emergency provisions. Again, we also have 35th we have mentioned over here, and 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act we have certain things like the issue ordinances on the state subject. We'll be saying that here we have, right, two consequences mentioned above, only the state when emergency is operation, but also to any other state. Now, first thing is the president can declare the emergency to one specific area as well. President can declare the emergency to a specific area as well. Then the next thing which it has mentioned is that whenever emergency provisions are there, the restrictions, legislative, executive, and financial restrictions apply not only to the specific area, other states as well. Any other states as well. They apply to any other states. Right. So these are the two amendments which we have mentioned from the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Now, in the 44th, we are revising 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. It requires 10% or more of the Lok Sabha members to share application and in the meeting of the Lok Sabha. Right. Again, here in the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, 1/10 of the Lok Sabha members given written notice to the Speaker, and then the President if the House is not in the session. And then a special sitting of the House is held within 14 days. Special sitting within 14 days. This approval only needs the concurrence of the Lok Sabha, unlike the approval which needs both houses. We have mentioned that when the Lok Sabha wants to revoke the emergency, it needs 1/10 of the members are given a written notice. There needs to be a written notice, right? If there is a written notice, then what happens? Then we say that a special sitting must be held within 14 days. Disapproval only needs the concurrence of the Lok Sabha, unlike the approval which needs both the houses. Now, the revocation of the proclamation is mentioned has the power of disapproving the emergency Lok Sabha, right? We are searching again for the amendments. Needs to be approved every 6 months. This is 44th Amendment Act, where the national emergency needs to be approved every 6 months with a special majority. Earlier, the 2 months is changed by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. The proclamation must be accepted by the Parliament within a month. Right, within a month, and It needs to be approved every 6 months. Let us write over here. Then the proclamation reapproval. For every 6 months. First, let us go for chronology wise. National emergency, right? Written advice of the cabinet to the president. Now, when the president is declaring national emergency, the parliament must approve the national emergency within 1 month. And there is a reapproval for every 6 months. Right. Reapproval for every 6 months. If the Lok Sabha doesn't want, if the Lok Sabha wishes to revoke the emergency, it has the Lok Sabha with respect to revoking. And what with respect to judicial review and fundamental rights under the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. And 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, the two consequences, the executive and the legislative, extends not only to the state where emergency is in operation but also any other state. We have seen that financial is president who can modify the constitutional distribution of the revenues between the center and the states, subject to the approval by the parliament. Legislative is when the parliament is empowered to make laws. Executive is when the central government, the center can give executive directions to the state. Now, in the 44th Constitutional Amendment, 1/10 of the members give a written notice. Lok Sabha passes a resolution disapproving the emergency, then the president can revoke it. And needs approval every 6 months, can be reapproved as number of time as well. Either it was simple majority but passed by both the houses in special majority. Within 1 month, right? This is through a special majority. Earlier it was a simple majority. And Lok Sabha revoke. This is right. It can be passed with a special majority. It is through the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Special majority is included in the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now, Minerva Mills case is related to the president's rule. We have the Minerva Mills case, and the Minerva Mills case is related to the president's rule. Say that Minerva Mills case, right? The Minerva Mills case is related to president's rule, right? The proclamation can be challenged on the ground of, when there is a proclamation of the emergency, it can be challenged on the ground of malafide. We say that it is malafide, or the declaration was based on extraneous and irrelevant facts, or is absurd or perverse. Now we have 38th Constitutional Amendment Act, which has given immunity made by the declaration of national emergency, immune from the judicial review, but it was deleted. Therefore, there was no Supreme Court case. It was deleted by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Therefore, we say that we have no Supreme Court case. Here we have 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, which limit the president operation of the national emergency, enable the president to limit the operation of the national emergency. And an important thing which we have missed out is armed rebellion is being replaced, right? Armed rebellion is being replaced by the, it has replaced the internal disturbance. And even here, there is a connection that the fundamental rights under Article 19 is not, armed rebellion is not included over here. Now, Article 352, President is the one who can declare on the grounds of armed war armed rebellion and external aggression. But 44th Constitutional Amendment Act earlier the internal disturbances, danger of the war or armed rebellion, even not the actual occurrence of it, is enough to proclaim. It may be applicable to the entire country or only a part of it. Originally, the Constitution mentioned the internal disturbance as a third ground. Due to weeks, we have it deleted. 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act limit the operation of to a particular state. The President must give a written recommendation to the must receive a written recommendation of the cabinet to declare the emergency. Article 360 is related to the financial emergency, and Article 365 is failure to comply with the directions central government, and 356 is the failure of the constitutional machinery of the states. So there is a failure of the constitutional machinery, right? Now, national emergency is under Article 352 on the grounds of war, external aggression, armed rebellion. The Constitution employs expression proclamation of the emergency to denote an emergency of this type. That's it. So these are the constitutional amendments which we see through the 35th Constitutional Amendment Act, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, and 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Right. Now, suspension of the other fundamental rights. The President to suspend the right to move to court for the enforcement of the fundamental rights. Under Article 356, right to move to the court for the enforcement of the fundamental rights is under Article 32 and Article 226. Fundamental rights are not suspended, but the enforcement are only suspended. Right. What they are telling under Article 3, we know 358 is a restriction and 359 is a restriction to the fundamental rights. 359 states that the President can suspend right to move to the court for the enforcement of fundamental rights. There is a right to move to the court, right? This has been suspended. Fundamental rights as such are not suspended, but a right to move to the court. For example, you have Article 14, and if there is something against equality, the right to move to the court under Article 14 of the Constitution, right, is being suspended. When you are not provided equal opportunity in government services under Article 16, there is no equal opportunity. When the President suspends Article 16, opportunity is not suspended, but the right to move to the court on the grounds of opportunity is being suspended, right? Right to move to the court for enforcement of that fundamental right. Article 3, except Article 20 and 21 is cannot be suspended. So you can move to the court under Article 20 and you can move to the court under Article 21, right? Now the President to suspend the right to move any court for the enforcement of the fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are not such suspended, but only their enforcement is being suspended. We have 44th Constitutional Amendment Act restricted the scope in the sense article again we are having, this is a very important, right? In Article 359, sorry, 359. Article 359, it has made changes in the sense that Article 20 and 21 cannot be suspended. Article 20 and 29 cannot be suspended. The President cannot suspend the right to move to the court for the enforcement of fundamental rights, which are guaranteed by Article 20, and then we have the 20 to 21. Right. President himself cannot suspend the right to move to the Supreme Court for the enforcement of the fundamental rights, which are guaranteed. So the President, he is just suspending the right to move to the courts. What the President is doing, the President is not suspending the fundamental rights. The President is suspending the right to move to the court. Here, the President cannot suspend the right to move to the court for the enforcement of fundamental rights, which are guaranteed by articles, is going to be 20 and 21. The articles are 20 and then we have the 21. Only those laws which are related with the emergency are protected from being challenged. If there is something related to the emergency or being challenged, and not other laws and executive action taken only under such a law is protected. They are saying that those laws which are related to emergency are being protected from being challenged, right? So you cannot act arbitrarily in the name of emergency. Only those things which are relevant to emergency are being suspended, and not other laws, and this executive action taken only under such law is being protected. We have a difference between Article 358 and Article 359. Right. Article 358 is confined to the fundamental rights under Article 19 only, and it gets automatically suspended. We have to remember these 2 points. Article 358 is related to the suspension of Article 19, and it gets automatically suspended. Article 359 extends to all other fundamental rights whose enforcement of the fundamental rights is being suspended by the presidential order. So Article 359, it is going to extend to all the fundamental rights. And enforcement of the fundamental rights is suspended by the presidential order. 359 is going to extend to all the fundamental rights, to all those fundamental rights, and their enforcement. So we'll be having their enforcement is suspended, and their enforcement is suspended by the presidential order. Right. Article 359 does not get suspended automatically. Does not automatically suspend any fundamental rights. But here we will be having the automatic suspended. Article 358 operates in case of external emergency only and not the internal emergency. Article 359 operates in both the external and internal emergencies as well. Now we have to notice that it is automatically suspended and it is only for the external emergency. This is also through the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. But here we will be having that this is not through the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. But we say that the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act has some implications in Article 359 in the sense that Article 20 and 21 do not get suspended. Right. Now we have the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, which says that they are suspended only in the case of external emergency and not in the case of internal emergency. Article 358 suspends the fundamental right under Article 19 for the entire duration of emergency. But here, President can revoke it. President can extend it for the entire or the part of it. It extends to the entire country. Article 19 applies for the entire country. But here the President even he can revoke it after a certain period. Suspends the enforcement of fundamental right for a period specified by the President. And under Article 359, it may extend to the entire country or a part of it as well. Right. So we will be having that Article 359. What is Article 359? It may extend to the entire country or a part of it. But this is actually Article 358 is extending to the entire country. It is for the entire duration of the emergency, but a president can specify the time period for application of Article 359, where it suspends the enforcement of the fundamental rights for a period specified by the President. Article 358 suspends Article 19 completely. Right. 358 is the one which is suspending Article 19 completely, and 359 does not empower the President. Suspension of the enforcement of Article 20 and 21. Article 358 enables the state to make any law or to take executive action inconsistent with the executive action when it is inconsistent with the fundamental rights under Article 19. We will be having Article 359 enables the state to make any law or to take any executive action which is inconsistent with those fundamental rights whose enforcement is suspended by the presidential order. Right. What does it say is that it does not empower the suspension of the enforcement of Article 20 and 21. Article 358, it enables the state to make laws or take any executive action which is inconsistent with the fundamental rights. We say Under Article 19, we say state can make any laws which is inconsistent with Article 19, right? 358 enables the state to make any laws which is inconvenient with the fundamental rights whose enforcement is suspended by the presidential order. Declarations made so far proclaimed 3 times in 1962 and 1971 and 1975. Shah Commission to investigate the circumstances that warranted the declaration of 1975 emergency was appointed. So we have the Shah Commission. The declaration made so far, we have the declaration, right? It has been proclaimed 3 times since 1962. It has been proclaimed 3 times. That is, the first time is in 1962 and the second time is 1971 and third in 1975. Shah Commission has been to investigate the circumstances that warranted for the declaration of 1975 emergency is being appointed. So we will see President's rule in next video.